Hi everyone, I'm David from the Cyto project, and this is a video about why the 51% attack is solvable. The reason we're making it is that a lot of people have an intuitive sense that it can't be solved, and there are people writing academic papers and impossibility proofs based on this, and they're wrong. And so this is really important if you want to understand where blockchain is going, because there's a lot of misinformation. So my goal is in 10 minutes to show you how to solve this problem without confusing or boring you with mechanism design. And in order to do that, I want to start by looking at the problem. And I want you to picture this as a vote. So this vote can be a block in a blockchain. It can be a state transition in a consensus mechanism. And understanding this, the 51% attack seems to be simple because whoever has more votes is going to win the race. And this is how computer science approached the problem in the 1980s. And it seemed absolutely unsolvable. And we started to get papers coming out that were basically saying, look, a dishonest majority is a fundamentally unsolvable problem. They will do whatever they want because they can always stalemate honest consensus. So this is Brack and Toig, 1985. Leslie Lamport had a similar paper in 1998. So computer science for 20 years basically was coming and pushing this line, and there was no one disagreeing with it. And things didn't change until 2008. And things changed in 2008 because all of a sudden Satoshi opened up the voting mechanism. And I want you to think about this as kind of peering inside the atom, where inside the vote things were a bit more complicated, because suddenly we had this circular multi-step process where we're converting hash to votes, and the vote is the block. And then the block gets converted to a longest chain block, maybe, and only the longest chain blocks are going to pay out a resource that's used to rebuy the thing that we're using to make the vote. So we've gone into basically this circle where money is moving in a circle. And the interesting thing here is we've switched to a flow. We've got a mechanism that is all of a sudden something's changed. We can strip losers of the resources they need to generate votes. So if we unroll the voting process, we can now see that voting power can change over time. We've moved from this atomic perspective, which is just whoever has more votes is going to win forever and ever and ever, to a subatomic perspective where the flow is what matters. And when you're in a flow model, it's whoever is more efficient at back and forth conversion. And this is going to tell us, it tells us the problem actually with Bitcoin. The problem is that this conversion process is symmetrically efficient for honest nodes and attackers. And the reason for that is that the longest chain tax is symmetrical. It doesn't care if you're honest or dishonest. It's just going to reward the winner. Now, I think this is where this intuitive impossibility sense comes from. Because what happens is people have this kindergarten simple model of voting that is reinforced by academics in the 1980s. Satoshi comes along and things seem to be new, but once people have done the hard work of thinking in circles, they realize it's giving me the same outcome as my earlier, much simpler model. And there's a psychological bias towards simplicity. It's called the simplicity bias, also cognitive ease, where people prefer models that are simpler to think about. And what I think is happening is that the Bitcoin, proof of work, proof of stake, the problems people are running into is reinforcing their sense that their simple model is correct, because the more complicated models aren't solving this fundamental issue. But we can solve it. And the problem, if you remember, is the symmetrical nature of the conversion. And on this slide, what I've done is I've written down the stock to vote step and the block to stock step. Now, these are steps where we can actually tweak the efficiency. Now, in the symmetrical approach like Bitcoin, the conversion ratio is the same for both honest nodes and attackers. But what if we could make it different? In this diagram, what you're seeing is that for attackers, you need to spend twice as much stock to make your votes than the honest nodes do. And that when the payment is happening, the honest nodes are going to collect $2 for every dollar that you extract from the system. Now, if we can do this, we've got a system that moves from symmetrical efficiency of conversion to asymmetrical efficiency of conversion. And what this means is that the attackers are going to lose voting power over time. So this is how we're going to solve the problem. And notice also that because there are two costs, we can hold them in inverse relationships. So if someone tries to cheat the mechanism by faking one of the metrics, for instance, in a routing work mechanism, it would be an attacker that puts their own money into the block. And you can see kind of like if one number goes up, the mechanism can be designed so that the other conversion ratio goes down. And no matter what you do, no matter how you cheat, you're trapped with a suboptimal outcome compared to the honest node, which is the most efficient in the network. So if you look into routing work, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see we've got these three taxes, and the burn stock is asymmetrically punishing attackers. Longest chain tax is not, it's indifferent. But the burn energy tax, which also asymmetrically punishes attackers, comes after the longest chain tax so that honest nodes don't even need to pay it. So we're creating a system that is asymmetrically costly for attackers and that bleeds them out. We have a lot of writings for Cyto and routing work that explain how this works. Just to point out to you that this is not a theoretical solution, remember we're looking for an asymmetrical efficiency. And one of the problems is it's very difficult in other mechanisms to find that. What I'd like to leave you with is the observation that if your work mechanism is collecting fees, and the nodes that do that the most efficiently get to produce blocks faster, attackers are always going to be less efficient than honest nodes for whatever subset of blocks they orphan. So there is actually a measure of efficiency that we can introduce to a consensus mechanism by including topological information and the topological efficiency of the network in a form that consensus can observe and in a form that feeds into these different cost structures. If you are interested in learning more, we've got a lot for you to take a look at. You can see the network. We've got a description of the consensus mechanism. This is actually going to explain how you build an incentive structure that does what I've theoretically explained up above. If you are interested in theory, we've got a mathematical proof that this accomplishes what we're claiming it accomplishes here. However, the goal of this video, what I'm hoping you're going to take away from it, is that this problem is solvable. But to solve it, we need to move away from viewing voting as some kind of static atomic constant. And we need to shift into this flow view of voting power. And we need to design asymmetrical mechanisms that tax work orphaning and the censoring of transactions, because that gets us through. And I think if you understand this now, you'll realize why we're doing it. But we could really use help from people who understand this mechanism, and we could use help from people who can help us improve it. So if you understand this and you dig into things, you will find yourself on the cutting edge of distributed consensus research. We would love to hear from you. And thank you for watching.